Reversing narcissistic abuse. Don't just heal the narcissistic abuse trauma. Reverse the narcissistic devaluation programming. To learn more, go to reversenarcabuse.com. Today, we're going to talk about what is codependent cognitive dissonance. This is very important. I love that term, cognitive dissonance. So, cognitive dissonance, technically, if you look up the definition of it, it means holding two opposing viewpoints at the same time. It's far worse than just being confused. Confused when you can't tell the difference, or you're having, you confuse one thing for another. Cognitive dissonance means that there are two completely opposing ideas in your head, and you're trying to hold on to both of them, and you're trying to get both of them to make sense. Now that sounds like just a strange, irrational place to be, but it's actually incredibly, incredibly painful. When we're talking about codependent cognitive dissonance, we're talking about somebody who has a very strong emotional agenda to make a completely dissonant, dysfunctional scenario make sense. Not only, as you know, not only do codependents have a strong emotional attachment to making a dysfunctional relationship work, it's actually coming from a deep survival mechanism. So they actually, on an unconscious level, believe that they will die if the relationship doesn't work out. I've been in these relationships, and as you know, I started this channel because I got into a romantic relationship with a woman who suffered from severe, untreated borderline personality disorder. And it was the worst pain I'd ever experienced, and I'd been through a lot in my life. In fact, I was really considering deleting myself. I was in so much pain. And it was because of this idea that I'm bringing about, which is codependent cognitive dissonance. So first, let's understand what it means to be a codependent. First off, the vast majority of people on this channel who don't want to identify as codependents, that in and of itself is a sure sign that you are. So let's reverse what codependence is. So codependence is a relationship dynamic where a dysfunctional person must be enabled or regulated by someone less dysfunctional. So that is codependence with a C. It's a dynamic. If you've been in a relationship with a narcissist or a borderline or even an alcoholic or a drug addict, any other kind of dysfunctional person, by definition, you have been in a relationship that is a codependent dynamic. So you've got to accept that. You're already involved in codependence if you're with these people. Second definition, codependence, the individual. The individual who takes on the responsibility of regulating or enabling the less functional partner. So number one, you can't be in a relationship with a narcissist or a borderline and not be a codependent person. And you can't say, which most people do. In fact, one guy gave his definition. He said, when I looked at the symptoms, what I saw was that I was actually suffering from PTSD, not from codependence. And again, to say that means you completely don't understand what PTSD is. PTSD isn't a diagnosis. It is a symptom that you are in severe trauma. That is true for borderlines, narcissists, partners of borderlines and narcissists. All of them suffer from PTSD. So PTSD is not a diagnosis in and of itself. It's just a symptom. It's like saying I have a runny nose. Well, is that because you have a cold or because you have COVID? What is it? It's just a symptom. So of course you have PTSD. You're a victim. You can't be a victim of narcissistic abuse and not have PTSD. But we're going to find out later that all parties in dysfunctional relationships are codependents and suffer from codependence. My definition of codependence is you get your value, your lovability, your validation from something that you do, not from who you are. If you're in a relationship with a narcissist or a borderline, you already follow that definition because you are there to regulate them. They make it very clear, I love you because you do this for me. Borderlines will call you their favorite person. My borderline used this exact quote: "You're the best because you do all the things," with a little baby voice as she said it. And what she was saying, I didn't realize it, I was very happy to hear that. I had no idea what love bombing was. I had no idea what idealization was. I thought she meant it. She was going to always feel that way. What was happening was that she was saying, I like you because you do certain things for me. You're not the best because you're a beautiful soul living in this world, bringing joy to my existence. You're the best because you do certain things. You regulate my dysregulated emotions. That's all she was saying. So she was saying that you have value because of what you do, not because of who you are. And because I liked that right there qualified me as a codependent. It qualified her as a narcissistic abuser, but she also did those same things. She tried to fix me. So no matter what part of the relationship you're in, you're a codependent. So get over it. Now, as you sit there saying, I'm not a codependent, one of the main symptoms of all codependents is denial of their codependence. So a true person who's not a codependent, if you say, that's very codependent of you, they would say, codependent? Wow, I need to go check that out. I don't want to be a codependent. Is there some kind of group I can go to, like a 12-step group or something? Is there some place I can go where I can find that out? You didn't do that. When I said you're a codependent, you said, I'm not a codependent. I don't need to do that. I have PTSD. No, I'm an empath. No, I just feel too much. No, you don't understand. She did this to me. He did that to me. Right off the bat, you're a codependent if you're denying it. All right, so let's get into codependent cognitive dissonance in action. I'm going to share with you a comment. I love comments on the channel, and I encourage you to leave them because it allows me to educate you. So if you were the person that left this comment, please don't get your feelings hurt. I'm not trying to attack you. By the way, one of the main symptoms of codependence is you can't tolerate any kind of criticism. Because as a codependent, you were programmed to believe that your value comes from being perfect. So the moment somebody says that you have done something wrong, or like, this is why codependents don't want to be codependent, because they see it as a failing, they see it as a flaw, and they can't have any flaws because then they're going to get abused, they're going to get attacked, they're going to get rejected. So this is why people will say, yeah, I'm just like that guy who's clearly a codependent, even though I have the exact same symptoms and was in the exact same scenario. I'm not a codependent. I may have had codependent tendencies in the past, but I've gotten over that with a lot of shadow work. This is codependent denial, period, end of story. So if you get your feelings hurt because I'm pointing out to you the flaws in your thinking, it's because I want to help you find healing. So before you do anything else, if you're unfamiliar with what the one thing is, this channel used to be called The One Thing That Heals BPD and NPD Abuse. Don't leave me a message saying, what's the one thing? I want you to not be a lazy Gen X person. People are so lazy now. If I want to find out on somebody's YouTube channel if they talk about something, I know how to search within the channel. So if you're on a laptop or on a desktop, go to my YouTube channel page. And on that channel page, there will be a magnifying glass. Click on it, type in the one thing. You'll see the video come up. If you don't know how to do it on your device, it's a phone or something else, then go to Google and type in how to search somebody's YouTube channel on iPhone, iPad, and then search for it. I'm not going to do your work for you. I've also found if I give it away to people, they don't do anything with it. So if you're really serious about finding out the one thing that's going to help you heal, go look for it. I also wrote about it in my book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend. You can go look for that on Amazon. How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend. All right, now let's get to the quote. don't take this personally. I want to point out to you that you're in a state of neurosis. So let's talk about neurosis versus psychosis. If you've been in a relationship with a narcissistic abuser, borderline or otherwise, you are in a state of neurosis. Neurosis is similar to psychosis. Psychosis means you've had a complete split from objective reality. You're living in a delusion. You can't determine, you can't detect actual reality from your own delusions or your paranoia. That's psychosis. You're completely split from reality. Neurosis is, you know what reality is, but you don't like it, and you fight with it. You fight against it. You try and make the paranoia or the delusion within you, you try and make that fit into reality, but you're not successful. That's neurosis. This, again, is a good way of describing cognitive dissonance, taking two things that don't fit and trying to make them fit. And again, why are you doing that? Because you have a nervous system survival instinct that is telling you, if I don't make sense of this dysfunctional relationship, I'm going to die. If I can't figure out a way to get this person to love me, even though they're abusing me and discarding me, if I can't figure out how to get them to love me, I'm going to die. That's what's happening here. So this is why cognitive dissonance is so incredibly destructive, and it never goes away. Never goes away unless you do the one thing. So let's take a look at the quote here. Is this it? No. Where is the quote? Is this it? No, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. What happened to it? This is it. Aha. All right, so this person says, my BPDX is self-aware. Let me stop there for a second. So that doesn't mean anything. I know you think it means something. The assumption is if your partner is self-aware, and this is more likely to be said about a borderline. A narcissist, if you say the narcissist is self-aware, that's not going to have as much impact because narcissists have the stigma of knowing that what they're doing is evil. And this is why borderlines will often say, I'm not a narcissist because I have empathy. I don't mean to hurt anybody. But again, that doesn't mean anything. You have two people walk up to a stranger, stab them in the eye with an ice pick. One of them's a borderline. They said, I couldn't help myself. I had an impulse. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. I'm not a horrible person. It doesn't change the fact you just blinded somebody in one of their eyes. And another person goes up, stabs somebody in the eye with an ice pick, and you say, oh, well, they're a narcissist. They planned it out. They knew what they were doing. The person says, yeah, I planned it out. I knew what I was doing. You're not going to say, well, that's worse than the person who didn't mean to hurt you but walked up to you and stabbed you in the eye. The end result is for the person on the other end of that ice pick, it feels exactly the same. It has the exact same. The person who didn't have the motive to hurt you doesn't change the fact you just blinded somebody. So that, my borderline X is self-aware is meaningless. You think it means something because you think that if they're aware of the damage that they're doing or if they're aware of their dysfunctional behavior, that somehow that means that they will be able to pull it together. I know from personal experience, my borderline X, when she would, act out and be destructive, I would then want to sit down and have a conversation with her, explaining to her, let's find out why you did this. And she would be more than happy to oblige me, and she would go very deep into herself. And she would be able to figure out exactly why she did what she did. And that would give me a false sense of security because I'd go, oh, well, now that she knows, she won't do it again. And of course she would. So being self-aware is meaningless. This is a sign of cognitive dissonance because you think that if she's aware, then she'll be able to change. As opposed to somebody who's not aware and can't help themselves. But the truth is, you don't have to be self-aware to be loving and kind. I'll explain that one day. I'll let you sit with that. You think being self-aware is going to somehow give you the ability to be loving and kind, and it doesn't. because it's not about self-awareness, it's about impulse control. Borderlines and narcissists are functioning from their nervous system self-defense response. It's not coming from any cognitive awareness. So let's get rid of that. My BPDX is self-aware. It means nothing. Goes on to say, she doesn't scheme to hurt anyone, she schemes to cope. So this is what I was saying earlier. She doesn't stab you in the eye with an ice pick because she's trying to hurt you. She stabbed you in the eye with an ice pick because she's trying to feel better. So using the word cope, that brings you into a state of pseudo empathy for them because you go, oh, they're trying to cope with the pain. Doesn't matter. Narcissists, even if they choose to harm you, they're doing it to cope. It doesn't mean anything. You haven't explained anything. You're giving yourself false explanations that tone things down so that you can explain away the abusive behavior. Because for you, if you say she's not self-aware, she's doing it to cause harm, you can't explain that away. But if what you have is a need to connect with her and to be with her, even if you're not in the relationship with, you're not in a relationship with her, but you're in denial. And I already know by reading this, don't take this personally, but I already know by reading this that if she came back and said, I want to be with you, I've thought it through, you're the one that I love, you take her back instantly. I can tell by the way that you're talking, you're setting yourself up to take her back. She's self-aware. She doesn't do it to hurt. She does it to cope. All right, so I can work with that. As long as she then becomes aware and then figures it out, she's going to come back and realize I'm the one that she loves and she'll stay with me. That's what you're setting yourself up for. This is cognitive dissonance. She can't be with you. She can't function. She's not healthy, but she didn't mean to do it, and she's self-aware, and maybe someday. And again, coming from the absolute, again, this is a neurosis. You know the reality that she can't be with you, but you're trying to talk yourself out of it. This is coming from a deep, deep wound from childhood. You are in a state of PTSD where your little inner infant is screaming out for mommy, and you are trying to do everything possible to rearrange reality so that mommy can come home and take care of you. It's a very, very painful place to be. My BPDX is self-aware. She doesn't scheme to hurt anyone. She schemes to cope. Now, she loves me. She cares about me. Again, what you're doing is you are separating her from the evil narcissist who doesn't love you and doesn't care about you and only hurts you and uses you for their own pleasure, so that you can't make that work. But you can make it work if you tell yourself that she loves you. What is love? Is love a feeling or is love an action? If love is a feeling, maybe she does love you. She might have a squishy feeling for you. The problem is she has borderline personality disorder. Those feelings aren't powerful enough to stop her from acting out. You even say so yourself. She loves me, she cares about me, but she's not capable of a healthy relationship either. We're going to stop there because then you go off into delusional la-la land in a moment. Again, don't take that personally. I'm not judging you. I've been exactly where you are. You are suffering from untreated chronic codependence. The way to fix that, do the one thing. You don't think you're a codependent? You wouldn't have written this if you weren't. And I know because I've been there. So it's not a personal attack. I've healed myself of the pain of that narcissistic relationship. And in my experience, unless you do the one thing, the healing will never come. It doesn't matter if you go to therapy. You can go to therapy for decades. I know because I was in therapy for decades. I was in therapy group for decades. And I saw people, 30 years of it, I saw people who were in it for 30 years, chronic untreated codependence. They never healed. The only people that healed were the people who took action outside of therapy. And again, I'm talking about talk therapy. I'm not talking about action-based therapy like DBT therapy. And there's a bunch of other therapies I'm not aware of. Talk therapy, Jungian, sit around and let's look deep into our unconscious. means nothing. This is behind, by the way, the phrase, she's self-aware. Because again, it's kind of that Jungian therapy of, if I'm aware of my unconscious, I'll be able to change and do different things. And I found that's not true within myself and with others. The only thing that will change it is appropriate targeted action. That is the 12 steps. All right. So you're in cognitive dissonance. She's self-aware. She doesn't scheme to hurt anybody, even though she plunged ice picks into my eyeballs numerous times. She didn't mean to do it. She's doing it because she can't handle her feelings. Well, I feel for her, so now it's okay. I can't judge her. I have to allow her to hurt me. I can't, cognitive dissonance. She loves me. She cares about me. Again, what is love? If love is a feeling, then you're right. If caring is a feeling, you're right. If love is an action, then she doesn't love you. Because love means that you choose to consistently and dependably act in ways that are always healing for the other person. When it is brought to your attention the first time that a certain behavior is hurtful, you stop, you change, you do something different. Most importantly, love is when you act with the conscious intention of being helpful, kind, and constructive to the other person, even when you have feelings of hatred towards them. So love, if love is a feeling, then it can be replaced immediately with feelings of hatred, which is exactly what happens when borderlines split on you. It's not love. She cares about you. Great, she could care about you 99% of the time. That 1% where she goes sociopathic, because she splits on you and becomes a secondary psychopath. Borderlines are secondary psychopaths. When she goes secondary psychopath on you because she thinks you're trying to kill her, and again, as you say, she's trying to cope. So when she's trying to cope, even though she's now in a psychotic state, she doesn't know what actual reality is, meaning she doesn't know what your actual feelings are, and she doesn't remember accurately your actual actions towards her. Then when she acts abusively and sticks the ice pick in your eyeball, you tell yourself that's okay, she's just doing it to cope. But if you knew that she was doing it because she wanted to harm you, now all of a sudden that wouldn't be okay. Now all of a sudden she doesn't care about you. Well, she hurts me, but she cares about me. Cognitive dissonance. You can't have them. Caring about somebody, hurting somebody consistently over and over again in the same ways because you can't help it. You can't care for somebody and hurt them. You can't love somebody and continuously hurt them. You can't be truly self-aware and keep acting in ways that you can't control. Cognitive dissonance. Now, the rest of it, you say, I always say, now this next part is this is my psychoanalysis of you. Don't take this personally. I've been there. I've been in the exact same place. I've done it. That's how I know. It means you're in a deep state of codependent neurosis. You're in a deep state of cognitive dissonance, and you're desperately trying to tell yourself that you know what a healthy way to live is, that you're trying to tell yourself that you have the ability to heal yourself and find love. The truth of the matter is you are trapped in still, because you wouldn't have made all these excuses for an abusive person. Who cares if they meant to do it or not? That's completely meaningless. You have value. You deserve to be treated well. Somebody treats you badly, whether they meant to do it or not, is completely, totally irrational. There's you go to, a water park. When I was a kid, there was a place called Marineland where I lived, which no longer exists. I now live in Florida, and there's a Marineland down the street. But imagine you're at a place like Marineland, and they've got the shark tank. And in the shark tank is a great white shark, and he's very hungry. And you know for a fact that the shark doesn't mean to harm you or anybody else, doesn't have any feelings for you or anybody else. He's just hungry. So if you know that if you go into that shark tank, you're going to get your leg bit off. He's going to bite your leg off. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Are you going to get in that tank? You're like, no, I don't want that to happen. Choosing to convince yourself to stay in a relationship with somebody you know has a mental illness, like borderline personality disorder or NPD. Choosing to stay in the relationship is like choosing to go into the shark tank and not taking it personally when he bites your leg off, because it isn't personal. He's a shark. That's what sharks do. So what, you're going to go in because he didn't mean to do it? He was hungry, he couldn't help himself? No, you're not going to get in there. So what you're about to say is you are telling yourself that you know what's really going on, that you're not suffering from chronic cognitive dissonance, that you're not neurotic, that you're not suffering from extreme untreated codependence, that you're not a victim looking for an abuser. Because that's what happens when you've been in these relationships. This is why people can't get back into romantic relationships, because they're broken. And so, it's just the same. It's another symptom of the same thing. You either stay out of relationships or you end up in relationships with people who are abusive. So you say, I always say, if you dated yourself, would the relationship be healthy? If the answer is yes, then you know that you are capable of a drama-free life. But you would have said that before. So go back to before you got into the relationship with the borderline, the narcissist. And if you asked yourself, what is your question again? You said, if you dated yourself, would the relationship be healthy? If you had asked yourself before you got into the relationship, you would have said yes. So it doesn't mean anything. It's just another form of denial. That question, assumes that you're conscious of what you're doing. You weren't conscious, because if you were conscious, just like, the shark's going to bite your leg off. You're conscious of the dynamic and the reality of it. You're not angry at the shark because he wants to eat you. He can't, because he's in his little shark tank, so he can't, jump out of the water and chase you down and eat you, unlike Sharknado. He can't do that. So you're not upset, but you're conscious. You know what the dynamic is. Your food, that's a predator. You don't get into a tank with a shark. That's consciousness. Getting into a relationship with a borderline or a narcissist when they're love bombing you and operating from your unconscious wound, your childish unconscious wound, that shows a complete lack of consciousness. Again, I'm not judging you. I've been through it. This is you telling yourself, when the storm is coming, it's okay, it's not storming outside. It's not storming outside. The hurricane's not going to land here. It's not going to land here. If you dated yourself, would the relationship be healthy? If the answer is yes, then you know that you are capable of a drama-free life. If you can heal that lack of love in you, how do you plan on doing that? Just saying that you know that you need to heal the lack of love in you means nothing. That's just like saying my borderline is self-aware. But even though she's self-aware, she can't help but be abusive, and she can't be in a relationship. She loves me, she cares for me, but she can't help herself. She is abusive to me. And she's not doing it to hurt me, she's just trying to cope. Just nonsense. The bottom line is she's very destructive to you, at the very least. And you should not get in the shark tank with her. Cognitive dissonance is you're sitting outside of the shark tank going, but the shark doesn't mean to harm me. And if I got in there and the shark is self-aware, but the shark is hungry. If you can heal that lack of love in you that you are desperate for, that keeps you from advocating for yourself. Again, a lot of talk. The love that you are desperate for. So the point is to get to the place where you're not desperate. That's a very difficult place to be. One of the first things that abuse victims do is they look for another relationship. And in fact, they'll even say, the thing to do is to find somebody that loves you. And I share this example, and I will forever because it's the best one. There was a person who used to come on this channel, and they would ask the same question, and I would have the same response, and they would still come back, months later with the same question. And the question was, how do I get rid of the ruminating? I'm no longer with my borderline, but I still ruminate about her. I still think about her. And I'd say, you need to do the one thing. You're still in the relationship. You're still in denial. They go, no, I'm not. I'm out of the relationship for years. I'm married to somebody else. I have kids with somebody else. My new wife loves me, but I can't stop thinking and fantasizing about my borderline ex. And the point of that is that getting another relationship isn't going to fix it. It's not getting the love that you're trying to advocate. The idea is if you can find the love that I desperately want, and if I advocate for myself and all of that talk, it won't help you. You're still 5 years down the road going to be thinking about it. You're still going to wake up in the middle of the night in the sweat. Maybe not every night, but you're going to wake up feeling that incredible cognitive dissonance. She loves me. I can't live without her. We had such great sex. She knows that I'm the one for her, but she's still blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I can go on and on and on, but again, guys, I can tell from your comments immediately whether or not you've done the one thing. It's nothing personal. I can tell. Just like if you go to the doctor, you got a big, giant, pussy mess, wound on you, and the doctor says you got to take antibiotics. You go home, take the antibiotics, and you come back a week later, and the doctor's going to go, oh, that's healing up nicely. He's going to know immediately whether or not you took the medication. You go home with cognitive dissonance, and you go, well, yeah, I have that, but you know what? I have a strong mind. Maybe I can make the bacteria go away, and I'm going to research everything there is to know. I'm going to become self-aware about bacterial infections, and I'm going to do some study. And you go back a week later, and it's still, doctor says, did you take the medication? You go, well, I sort of did. I did research on it, and I've really thought about it. I'm getting better sleep. I'm eating better foods, and I'm advocating for myself and my health. And the doctor's going to say, take the medication. I can tell immediately you haven't done it. I can tell immediately from your comments whether or not you've done the one thing. It's okay if you haven't. You're brand new. You don't know any better. But that's the only way to heal. And my last question is for you, do you want to be happy? Are you happy? Can you say, not like I'm mostly healed, I have a lot more happiness. No. Are you happy? Are you comfortable? Don't pretend that you are. I can't see you. I can't hear you. So you're not convincing me of anything as you tell yourself, yes, I am. Be honest with yourself. Are you still in pain? If so, then go to the doctor and get healed. It's real simple. There's an easy, instant fix. People who do the one thing, they heal within weeks, months. If they don't, it'll stay with you for decades. Might even stay with you for the rest of your life. My experience is that it does. It stays with you for the rest of your life and gets worse. That's what I've seen. So do the one thing and heal. If you want to learn more about getting underneath, which is all we're talking about right now, is healing the narcissistic abuse trauma. You can go beneath that. You can actually reverse the narcissistic devaluation programming. To understand that, go to reversenarcabuse.com. If you want to learn what I'm teaching called quantum shifting, where you actually go back in time and reprogram yourself so that you're not continuously operating from this program, go to quantum shifting. You can find that at thunderwizard.com. There's a quantum shifting #1 is there for free, and you can watch that. And then you can go into the shop, thunderwizard.com, go to the shop. Don't do it on an app, by the way. Do it with your, do the internet. And then the quantum shifting course is there. And if enough people are interested, I'll keep making the quantum shifting course available. That's it, my friends. I wish you all the best. And remember, you have value simply because you exist. All right, that's it. See you guys all next time.